Okay, guys, welcome to Chapter 7, Ancient Greeks, Lesson 3, Greece and Persia. And it matters because although it was a large and powerful civilization, the Persian Empire could not defeat the Greeks. Please make sure that you're listening to everything. In the video, there's going to be some good stories about the wars, and a lot of people find that very interesting. That is also going to be information that you need to add to your grapes. This is going to be a big political section of your grapes. So make sure you are listening very well and filling in the information that you need. Let's get started. Okay, so we have Persia's empire. In the 500s BC, the Persians were building a powerful empire in Southwest Asia. Persia was located in the modern-day country of, over here, nope, Iran. A talented king named Cyrus built a strong army and began creating one of the world's largest empires in the ancient world. So if you take a look at this map, you're going to see here's Persia in the green, okay? So this is taking up all the way down by the Nile River in Egypt and all the way up here in Greece. So Persia Empire was pretty big. Cyrus, as you're going to learn, he had a dynasty monarchy going on. So remember, dynasty is that line of rulers from the same family. We have a little bit of that going on here with Cyrus. So you have a little biography here of Cyrus the Great. Let's take a moment and read this, okay? One reason that Cyrus the Great was so successful as emperor was the way he treated conquered people. He didn't force people to adopt Persian customs, and he didn't mistreat them. For example, Cyrus allowed the conquered Babylonians to keep worshiping their own gods. He also allowed the Jews who had Babylon slaves to return to their homeland. Because of these acts, both the Babylonians and the Jews had great respect for Cyrus. So, Cyrus conquered much of Southwest Asia. Cyrus let conquered people keep their own customs and religions. Few people rebelled against him, and his empire remained stable. So, before you go into the hot question, I want you to put a star by Cyrus. Cyrus let conquered people keep their own customs and religions. This is going to be important later on to know why the people were willing and ready to follow Cyrus. So now your hot question. Does Cyrus deserve the title of the Great? Why or why not? Remember, we do not start our sentences with pronouns. You need to start it by restating the prompt. You would say, Cyrus does deserve the title of the Great, or Cyrus does not deserve the title of the Great, period. And then you want to explain why. It needs to be a minimum 3 to 5 sentences. You need to use that historical evidence. Remember, we're not asking you your opinion. We're asking you to give that historian perspective answer. So make sure that you guys are doing this correctly, and we will see you in class. You're going to have Miss Hodges now, and make sure you're listening to her stories. It's all about the wars. It's good stuff, guys. Bye.
All right, so now you've heard about the Persian Empire and what they represent and what they have and how big they are and who their leaders were. So we want to take that just a step further. If you are the leader of a strong empire, you're going to want to conquer other places. That's just what leaders do. And so the Persian Empire becomes rather large, and it becomes so large that it gets difficult to manage. And the larger your empire, the more people you have to trust, and the more people you have to give responsibilities to, because you can't be everywhere. And Cyrus's grandson, who's inherited this, now I'm sure Miss Tickle told you that this would be a monarchy. You're passing that down through the bloodline. His grandson Darius the First divided the empire into different provinces, smaller areas that could be ruled by satraps, fancy word for governor. And the governor then would collect taxes. They would recruit soldiers for the army, And they also would judge legal cases. So people didn't have to go so far to actually see Darius the king. Some people call that Darius. You may hear that pronounced that way in other places. So that is him, King Darius or King Darius. And so the satraps that he put out in charge were in charge of these things. And as the empire began to grow, let's see if I can make myself maybe just, not sure how to make me smaller there. Darius did what his grandfather and his father had done. He decided it was time to expand the empire. They were doing very well. They had taxes. They were considered to be kind rulers, and they allowed people to keep their customs and things like that. So they decided that it was time to increase the empire. And so Darius starts on a track. One of the things that the Greek city-states think when Darius comes knocking on their door and wants to invade their city-states was, oh, no, 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 you can't do that because we are independent city-states and we are going to stay that way. We don't want to do that. And so they begin to fight for their independence. And we will go into more detail about this in class. So the main one that had an issue with this was the Ionian Greeks from where the Ionian Sea is. That's where they're going to go. But they used to be located where Troy is on the Persian side, the Turkey side of the Aegean. And so when they were starting to get attacked, they called for help. And of course, other city-states are like, yes, we're Greek. We will come help you. And the Athenians came to help. And that made Darius furious. Who are these little Greek people thinking they could come over here and help out the Ionian Greeks and help out my kingdom to fight for independence against me? And so one of the main reasons that Darius or Darius invaded Greece was for revenge. All right, so make sure that you've got all that filled in. Please pause it if you don't so that we can keep going. All right, I'm going to assume that you paused it. All right, here we go. So it broke out into a series of battles, and we will talk more about these battles in class, and we'll get into battle formations and logistics, just basically how all this went together. So the Athenians, Darius comes to attack Athens because Athens was one of the main people who came to help. And when that happened, Darius comes, and so the first battle is against Marathon at the place called Marathon. That's a city on the beach, and that's Persia versus Athens. Athens versus Persia. Persia is going to be led by Darius, and the winner of this battle is going to be Athens. It is a huge strategic battle, and this battle plan is still studied today. The Persians go home for 10 years because they lost, but they vow revenge as well to come back on the Greeks. So there's more details to this story, and we'll talk about those in class. We want to get the big picture right now. So at the Battle of Marathon, one of the big things that happens is a guy named Philippides runs all the way back to tell the Athenians that they had won. And the distance from Marathon back to Athens is approximately 26 miles. It's a little less, I think. But it's where we get the word marathon today, where we run the marathon, which is 26.2 miles. Well, after that, took a long time. The Battle of Thermopylae comes on. 10 years later, Darius has passed away, and his son Xerxes is now in charge. And he decides that, you know what, it's time those little Greeks paid for defeating my dad. And so he vows revenge just like his dad did, and he decides to go, it's time. It is now time for us to go back and start conquering Greece. And so, and that makes sense because Xerxes was a little boy when the first time his dad was defeated, and he saw his dad come home in defeat and saw him upset. And all he ever wanted to do was get revenge on those Greeks that hurt his father. So he leads a battle, his navy and everybody, and they head over that way. And the winner this time is Persia at the Battle of Thermopylae. This is the battle that you know as the Battle of 300 with King Leonidas and Xerxes. The Persians do win this battle. We'll talk about it later. And Persia actually goes through this mountain pass. And when the 300 are defeated, and they go through this mountain pass, they go to Athens, and they practically burn the whole entire thing to the ground. The big deal about Thermopylae, though, is that the Battle of 300, which were the 300 Spartans that came to hold on, fought long enough so that the Athenians could escape. They held them off for a long enough delay. The Spartans held off the Persians long enough so that the Athenians then could escape. And so while the Athenian population did escape and they were safe and they took a lot of stuff with them, the rest of the city was burned to the ground. They destroyed statues, they destroyed the Acropolis, they destroyed things around the Agora, just made a mess of the whole situation. And it started a long battle between Persia and the Greek city-states now. So the next major battle we want to look at is the Battle of Salamis. And this is where it comes in really important that you learned about who had the stronger navy and who had the stronger army. The Spartans were able to hold off the Persians long enough there for the Athenians to escape. But then we have the Athenian navy versus the Persian navy. The Persians are so sure that they can win now at this point that they just send almost their entire garrison, all of their navy, to go fight Persia at the Battle of Salamis. And we'll talk about that later too. But they were unprepared for what they found. They were unprepared for how strong the Athenian navy was. Although the Persians had burned Athens to the ground, the navy ships had escaped to fight another day, so to speak. And the Athenians now are able to fight on the sea, which their boats were better, faster, stronger. The Persian navy was almost completely destroyed. And one cool thing about the Battle of Salamis was Xerxes was so sure that he was going to win that he actually got up on one of those high hills and was going to watch the battle from up there. But as he watched his whole fleet be destroyed. And so we'll talk more about that too and what that looked like and how that happened. So the Persians still think, you know what, we can win. We can rally this together. We can do this one more time. But there's no way that they can do that at this point. Their navy is so destroyed. Their men are disheartened. They're not ready, willing to fight much anymore. But Xerxes pushes on. This time, all of Greece bands together. And this is where we get united we stand, divided we fall. All of Greece bands together against the Persian army. And this time the winner is Athens. And if you're counting, that is now 3-1. So the Athenians defeat the Greeks defeat the Persians. All of the Greeks together, united. All city-states come together. Well, not all, but most of them. Enough to say all. That now is not just an Athenian army or just a Spartan army. It is truly a Greek army this time from all city-states coming together to fight the Persians to defend their homeland, and they are successful. When that happens and that success comes around, after the war, Athens becomes super powerful because they were the ones who led the largest charge to defeat the Persians. And they enjoy a time of a golden age. Nobody wants to attack Greece. This little bitty Greek city-state just defeated the largest empire in the known world at the time, the Persians. And nobody wanted to fight them. So they had a long period of a golden age of peace. And during this golden age, they have their leader, Pericles. I like to say that Pericles is like Hercules because it rhymes, then you can remember that. Hercules was supposed to be like the strongest guy, one of the strongest demigods there. And so Pericles was the leader when Athens was in its golden age and democracy was at its height. And Greek became the center, Athens becomes the center of Greek culture. It becomes the place to go to college. It becomes the place to go learn. If you wanted to be a better writer, you go listen to Athenian playwrights. If you want to be a better sculptor, you go sit under Athenian sculptors and you learn that trade. If you want to know more about government, you want to be a government leader, same thing. You go to Athens to do everything amazing at this time. It is the center of the world, of the place to be. The Persian army was no longer strong enough to defend the entire empire because remember they had such a large empire and they had all those provinces and the satraps were ruling those out there. When the other provinces heard that Greece had defeated this great and powerful Persian army, they decided that they could do the same. They weren't strong enough to defend the empire. They'd lost so many men and so many resources that they weren't able to protect what they had back at home. The Persian people then grew unhappy with that current government. Why should we pay you taxes to pay for a war that we were not even at? Didn't even concern us. Why should we pay those taxes? So they quit paying taxes and then they started having little skirmishes all on the outskirts of town. And the Persian Empire became open to outside attacks. And that was the beginning of the decline of the Persian Empire, which eventually will lead into other empires and eventually become modern-day Turkey. So that is our first set of wars, the Persian Wars. The Persian Wars are between Athens and Sparta, and we just saw what happened on the progression of the chart. We will do so much more with that in class, but that's the overview. That's where we're going. All right, guys, so hope you wrote all this down. Please keep these handy, and we'll be able to talk more about this in class. I can't wait to check it and see what your hot questions said.